topic for this video is subjectivity and objectivity when critiquing, analyzing, and discussing art and other media. So, where to begin? Let's say, what does it mean to be subjective or to be objective when you're talking about a piece of art, a piece of media, a film, a comic book, a show, a video game? Here's just going to be kind of my broad, general understanding of it. This might line up with what you've run into, but this is how I tend to see the terms used, or just how I think they're most useful. So how I would describe it as, the subjective, what your subjective, opinion on, let's say a movie is that's primarily about, how you feel, what emotions the film, say, in question, helped create it in you, what feeling you left the theater with, what kind of mood or vibes the film was seeming to give you while you were sitting in the theater experiencing it. If things in your own life or in your own experiences related or tied to things in the film, then that's probably going to tie more into a subjective understanding. If you personally relate to or have some sort of association with something that the film is showing, that's more like a subjective observation then. And then this would contrast to objective observations. And so objective would be more things that are strictly factual, or things that are not dependent on you. Your subjective take on the film is your own feelings, right, on it, but the objective take would be more like a factual description. What things happened in the film, what were the names of the characters in the film, who was the director, what is this plot about, what are the actual literal lines of dialogue said by the characters in the film, what are the events in the film, what actually happens, what locations are they at, how are things presented, are there lots of close-ups, are there close-ups? We can objectively state, there can be, even if there's something like a little bit of flex on what exactly counts as a close-up or not, you can still make judgments about, the Star Wars prequel films have a lot of dialogue scenes that are just reverse shot of two characters in a room, and it's just one character's face and then the other's character's face. That happens a lot, and that's how you would objectively describe those scenes in the Star Wars prequel movies. Then the subjective would be, okay, did you think it was boring? Did you give a shit? Did you notice? Is it something you realize afterwards? Is it something where you can think that, oh, maybe the reason I wasn't so interested in this character, subjectively I wasn't interested in this character, is because objectively the way the film was presenting them was boring or uninteresting. This is how I would kind of view the subjective objective divide. And even as I say that, I don't view it as a divide, really. I view it as they're both, I don't know, pick your cliche, two sides of the coin, fucking whatever, you need both, or they both exist at the same time, they both tie into each other. The way I would kind of say it boils down to is that your subjective takes are necessarily, in some regard, based on objectively what happened in the film. If if a character dies in the film and you thought that was very meaningful and impactful when that character died, well, objectively that character needs to be in the film. They need to have died. It needs to be shown to us. And we could look at things like, oh, was there sad music in the scene? Did the previous scenes in the film establish who this character was or why we care about them? Those are more objective things you could look at. But then subjectively, the fact that it hit you and just it worked for you and you were sad and tearing up that this character died, that's a subjective take. Someone else could just not give a shit. Maybe someone else just thought that character was annoying. They were kind of happy when they died. So if subjectively two people could have different takes, but it's two different takes on objectively, oh, this character died, 48 minutes into the film, they were killed by this other character in this way. Other characters who were in the scene saw it happen, and that drove their motivations in further scenes. That's more objective shit. That's just like that either happened or it didn't happen, and it either happened in particular ways or it didn't happen in particular ways. So, but they both tie into each other. You're never just gonna do one or the other, or at least there's not usually as much of a purpose, I think, in doing one or the other. And I bring all this stuff up because I think it's important to just understand how these two concepts kind of how you can split, right, or how you might be able to determine more whether someone's comments are on an objective or a subjective basis, and just seeing how they tie together. I think it helps you understand media better. It helps to be able to like separate out a bit that like, oh, okay, maybe I really felt a strong feeling during a scene, but like maybe the actual scene in question wasn't all that sensibly constructed. Maybe there was just like things like the sound, right? The sound and the music, you could maybe view it as cheap in certain aspects, but sometimes it's just good story crafting that like if you put sad music over the scene, it'll probably make it sadder, and subjectively you'll probably feel sadder, but you can objectively recognize that like I'm feeling sad partly because of the music. Maybe what's also happening in the scene is sad, but maybe we can judge like, oh, if you took this music out though, would my feelings change? And would objectively what happened change? Like the character still dies whether you have the sad music on it or not. But hey, maybe that sad music pushes it further. And maybe for some people it doesn't. Maybe some people are just like, oh yeah, that character died and it's sad. And even if I watch the scene on mute, it'll still be sad, because even though that music can help create a mood in someone where you feel further sadness of it, maybe for me it doesn't matter too much because I recognize that like, oh, this character was important and they had a role in the story and now they've been killed by the villain. So I just, even on mute, I feel sad for the scene because I'm empathizing with the plight of these characters who I care about and have seen developed. So these things all play into each other, and you can do them in better or worse ways. I'm sure an example we've probably all seen before when it comes to just like where you can just really hype up on music to just try to dump an emotional feeling on people is, I can't remember which charity it is. Maybe it's the SPCA, but it's like, I'm sure you've seen those commercials for like the animal rescues. Animal rescues, animal charities. Very, very positive goal. I got nothing bad to say about that. But you know that commercial where it's in the arms of the angels, and it's just sad, slow shots of puppies and kittens, and it's like you just want to cry because it's just sad. It's just feelings. It's just going hard on feelings. It's just trying to create feelings with you. It's not giving you like facts about like, your donation of $10 means that, we'll be able to feed a dog for 3 months they're not thinking so much. It's just feelings. They're just trying to make you feel sad for the animal. So you give money, and hey, it's a charity. They're doing good things with that money. So I'm not like criticizing them for that. But I think we, as people, it's just good in your own life to recognize when something's just trying to like hit your emotions on that, when something's just trying to subjectively make you have a feeling. See how it's being deliberately crafted. It's not a fucking accident that they picked that Arms of the Angels song. Like that's on purpose. There's a lot of sad songs you could do a charity commercial with. They picked that one. It fits. It's iconic. People remember those fucking sad-ass commercials where they sing the song and there's all the puppies and kittens who just, really need someone to adopt them. It's good. It works. And it's also a very subjective, emotional thing. I mean, if you just don't give a fuck, if you're just some heartless bastard who doesn't give a fuck about animals, some sad song is just going to be nothing. Like, it's not actually, if I reject the feeling they're trying to put on me, then, that's it. That's all they're going for. They're just trying to ride hard on the feeling with something like that commercial. And that's fine. But, so, where I want to then just move to, though, is that, to me, I think this is one of those things where just based on human experience, everyone kind of innately has some sort of sense of this. Like the way I just explained that subjective, objective, they tie together. They're both, they both interact with each other. They both, you still, you're reacting to a piece of media that does exist and that other people can see. Objectively, if there are scenes in the movie, other people who watch the movie are going to see those same scenes. So I think people do just have some. Naturally, it's not too hard to get people on the idea that, like, hey, we could both agree on what happened in a scene, but we could both feel differently about it just based on our own just perspectives and personalities and who we are. Even though what we're watching is literally the exact same thing, because it's a film, it's literally the exact same when everyone watches it, but, people still have different takeaways from it. That's because the people are different, so their subjective shit is going to be different there. But where I saw where this came out as something, just this concept really got pushed to the forefront as, okay, we're not just discussing films now, we're discussing subjectivity and objectivity, is there's this guy on YouTube called Mauler, who I'm generally a pretty big fan of. Guy's not perfect, some things I could critique, but he's made a bunch of videos, and I pretty much like them all. But, Mauler, guy, he was doing video game reviews. He was doing them in a very long-form, analytical style. I recommend checking those out. But it's like some 10-hour shit where it's like, hey, here's 10 hours to explain why, like, Amnesia: The Dark Descent is actually a good horror game. And that might not be appealing or interesting to you, but to me, I was interested in that, and I clicked and watched it, and I was like, I came out of those videos having a very, very good understanding of what was actually going on in that game and how well crafted it was and how much deliberate, concentrated effort the developers were putting in to craft this very deliberate experience of a horror and of a intriguing story that pushes you forward through that horror. But a thing Mauler does, something at least, or he started doing, is he started saying that certain things were, like, objective. So my memory of this is what was kind of big, the big, just where the, just, this is what caused things to kind of explode out, where this was getting discussed in a new way that I saw, was with the film The Last Jedi. If you're watching this video, I mean, The Last Jedi, it was a fucking Star Wars movie. Good, you probably saw it, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter if you didn't, but just, like, you probably saw The Last Jedi. You probably have some awareness that, like, people were kind of divided on it, right? It was not unanimously positive and well liked. Some people, a fair chunk of people, seem to, like, really, really fucking hate it. And people have all sorts of different reasons. You can go read reviews. You can look at videos. That's one of those things. Just, there's a lot of videos on YouTube where, it's Last Jedi, Star Wars film. Oh, Disney, big international billion-dollar kind of thing. So anyone who's doing movie critique had a video about it, probably had some takes on it. And there was also a lot of, like, really negative feedback and stuff from fans. Some people were really, really, really mad and angry about the film. So people also have reactions and responses to that. So it's a big whole thing. It just keeps going, And then there was another Star Wars film, Rise of Skywalker. Whatever the fuck. I didn't even see that one because, little spoiler, but I didn't like The Last Jedi that much. But so something that happened was this Mauler fellow did a video. I think he just called it an Unbridled Rage, where it's kind of just him doing just his own kind of just a straight rant without much of a script, of just ranting, like, off his notes of everything that just pissed him off and that really annoyed him in the movie. And he didn't like a lot of stuff in the movie. But where this ultimately boiled down to a thing was him saying that, like, the movie is objectively bad. Like, just, this is a bad movie. It's not well constructed. The plot isn't good. The characters aren't very interesting. It's bad. It's a bad movie. And then that gets into this whole thing with the objective and subjective, where it's like, well, okay, I mean, can you say a movie is objectively bad? Can you say anything is objectively bad? What does it mean for a movie to be objectively bad? What about the fact that some people clearly quite enjoyed the movie and have made public their comments and reasons and reactions for why they enjoyed the movie. How can it be objectively bad if people enjoyed it? And this is where it's useful to separate out a bit the difference between objective and subjective. Like, I think maybe this throws people off a bit until you recognize it in this way. And this applies to things other than film, but it's like something can be kind of crappy and you can still personally like enjoy it or get something out of it, right? It's like fast food. Like Burger King fucking sucks, but it's also like cheap and really easy to get, and for the low standard it's at, it consistently meets that low standard, and it's also fucking cheap, and if you eat it, you won't be as hungry as you were before. So we can, evaluate and judge it like, okay, hey, I mean, by a lot of standards, Burger King's pretty garbage food to go out and buy, but sometimes it's not about getting good food. Sometimes you're just hungry and you need some shit that's quick and cheap. Sometimes you're willing to have a bit more money in your wallet if the food tasted worse. There's a niche there. So you can have a similar thing with a film. A film could be crappy. It could just honestly be a god-awful film, but you could still enjoy it. And that's the thing about subjective, is the subjective, it's tied to you. You could enjoy it for whatever reason. What if you're a kid and what if you're someone who's a relative of one of the actors in The Last Jedi? Like, what if you're a friend? What if you're Daisy Ridley, the lady who plays Rey? Like, she has like siblings, I think, right? Like, her siblings could just love the movie because like it's their sister on screen, and they just love seeing their sister on screen in a movie. And it's like, yeah, totally. Oh my god, if my sister was in a movie, I wouldn't. It could be a shitty movie, but I'd still be like, oh my god, it's my sister. She's so great. She's so great in it. And no one can take that from you. But it also doesn't mean like it's a good movie. Just recognize a little bit of that difference. That just... Because that subjective enjoyment can be based on like really particular stuff. Like a character could go through a dramatic arc that heavily resonates with you. And that like you draw a lot of comparisons between your own life, and that's cool and awesome when that happens. I've had that happen with characters and shows where I'm just like, oh, this guy, I fucking get this guy, yes. But you also gotta recognize that, like, oh wait, but that's just me though. That doesn't mean that like my mom or my cousin is gonna like the show, because they're probably not gonna feel exactly that strong feeling that I got off of this character and their story. So that's where it's good to separate out objective and subjective. And so some of, I'll just say back to the Mauler thing, like people got mad at him. People were mad. They did not like him calling the movie objectively bad, especially if they enjoyed the movie. And, I think it's just, again, people weren't like familiar with how these terms should necessarily be used or apply. So I think some of the like anger or strong reactions people had was a bit just misunderstanding. Mauler's just a random bloke. He's not some like academic, like student of film. He's just a guy who's doing his own thing, doing his own analysis. When he was saying the film was objectively bad, that was a little bit like just from himself. That was how he was using the terms. He had a meaning when he said objective. And, when he said like The Last Jedi is objectively a bad film, he wasn't saying that means no one can enjoy it, or that there's like nothing possibly positive or like commendable that you could find in it. But some people interpret it that way, and that's just like, no, just separate out that we can look at it in these two different ways. We can separate out these two different standards or viewpoints we might have. We can see, just, you gotta go about them differently. You can argue about either. That's another thing where I think people get a bit tripped up on, and I can get it because this one's a bit harder, but like, people can be wrong about objectivity. Maybe that sounds a bit odd, but it sounds like that might throw a whole wrench into things, but it's like, it's important to recognize that just someone could say they're being objective and be wrong. Because you can just be factually wrong. I mean, that's the strength of this kind of more objective way of looking at it, is because you can just be factually right or wrong about certain things. Let's use another film example. Let's use Star Wars. Let's use Episode 7, Force Awakens. Force Awakens, Kylo Ren stabbed Han Solo with a lightsaber and killed him. That's a thing that happened in the film. I won't play the clip here, but I saw this clip once through Mauler and his work, where someone was giving their own quickie takes on the film, and they were just off the top of their head talking to a webcam, kind of like this. It was way worse, though. It was not anywhere near as good as this video I'm making right now. But when they were talking about the film, they said that, like, Rey killed Han Solo. And, like, yeah, that's fucking wrong. That ain't what fucking happened. What? What? You sure? Maybe you felt like Rey killed Han Solo, but actually, objectively, if you look at frame number 4863, you can see that Kylo Ren is holding the lightsaber that is fucking inside of Han Solo's torso. I think he killed him. So that's like an objective thing where, yeah, if... Right? And, you know, hey, people could argue it, right? This is what I mean. We can argue about objective. You can try to argue that Kylo Ren isn't the one who killed Han Solo. I don't know how the fuck you would do it, but you are allowed to try. Probably shouldn't try on that one, but, like, you could try. That's where, you know, we can argue a little bit with things. Certain things, it can be a little bit harder to judge. Like, if we want to say, you know, over the course of that film, was it, like, set up or established or justified that we could expect or see in some way that Kylo Ren would kill his dad, Han Solo? Now, this one's a lot harder. See, this is a lot harder to make an objective statement on whether this is, like, justified or not. Because you get into things about, okay, are there things in the film that seem to be pointing to or explaining or indicating that this could happen? But then also, are they, like, doing it well? Is it in contradiction to other stuff? Is it, like, heavy-handed? Example of this would be where it's like, where you're objectively stating what a character's motivations would be, but it's like contradicting with other stuff, so it creates a problem, would be the last season of Game of Thrones, where they had Daenerys, like, lose her mind and go crazy and murder people, and, like, a little bit, like, start of that episode, or, like, the episode before it, they had a bit of stuff about, like, oh, Targaryens, they're crazy sometimes, and, oh, Daenerys, she sure is, like, they tried to do it, right? It's like, I think where you could say, oh, objectively. Well, you know, objectively, they're explicitly stating in the show that she could go crazy and that she has a propensity to, like, kill people. So they're stating that, and that would seem to justify them having her go crazy. But then, oh, wait, more context. There's more scenes and things we can look at. Like, let's actually, what are these other situations she was in? Who are the other people she killed? How has she acted in the past? Has any of her past behavior contradicted this? Because a lot of people ran into the issue where it's like, well, okay, on the one hand, you're saying Daenerys has killed a bunch of people, and that makes it possible for her to go crazy and kill a bunch of people now here in King's Landing. And then it's like, but wait a minute, contradiction. Daenerys also, like, freed a bunch of slaves, like, went out of her way, killed a bunch of slavers to free the tens of thousands of slaves under them. Like, deliberately, she went out of her way. And we saw, to do this, and we saw scenes that, you know, some of her setup from doing it was because, like, she saw that there was a signpost marking the distance from the city, and that there was, like, a dead slave girl, like, crucified on the signpost, and she just saw that and felt, like, personally fucking disgusted that there were people acting this way, you know, enslaving and murdering people. And it's like, okay, like, hang on, this doesn't really tie into the, like, crazy barbarian bloodbath, she wants to burn the world down. This is, like, a pretty moral, like, she's disgusted by slavery. You know, it's this whole, this is where they, like, fucked up, is they try to draw a link between, oh, she killed people before, so she can kill people now. But if you, and this is where, you know, objective shit, you can argue about it, you can talk about it, because we can say, well, hey, objectively, if we, okay, oh, she killed people in the past, so she's killing people now. Well, hang on, let's add some more details and bullet points. Who were those people she killed in the past? Oh, like, vicious slavers. Like, oh, she killed vicious slavers in the past. So who's the group of people you want her to kill now? Innocent, terrified peasants. Well, hang on. Wait, that's not a link. You can't... Someone who's killing slavers, then go in and kill... Like, that doesn't necessarily flow there. And that's where... And this is all, like, more objective stuff. This isn't talking about like how did you feel when you saw Daenerys do these things, or what did you think about how Daenerys' character was, or what did it make you feel like? Did you feel that this meant that when she did this, you felt like her character should now be killed because she's crossed a line? This is just like objectively like, well, hang on, what kind of stuff has she done in the past? What are you trying to show her doing now? Is there a disconnect here? Some of, maybe this is an idea that like people don't have, but I'd say this is kind of a useful thing to underline the objective analysis is just that like it's possible to write a story poorly. Like it's possible for a writer to just like fuck up or do a bad job. I'm sure we're all familiar with like poorly written, poorly constructed works of media. Like, Twilight's a pretty good punching bag. Like Twilight, it's not just that subjectively I didn't emotionally resonate with this 17-year-old girl who's crushing on a vampire guy. It's also that objectively, wait, why is this vampire in high school? Like, why the fuck would you still be in high school if you could just, why would you spend your time doing that? Why? You're out in the sun, but like it's foggy, but it can't always be foggy. So how are you old? Do you have to, what happens if what if the cloud, like just objectively, it's like, wait, this is like fucking stupid. The scenario is fucking stupid. Part of the reason I'm not emotionally resonating with these characters is because the scenario of what's happening in the little Washington town or whatever is like really fucking dumb. And part of the reason where a book like Twilight can be successful is because it's this romance novel thing, so it's really more interested in targeting like a feeling. It's more interested in making the like presumably female reader feel this emotional connection of like, oh, what if a man was treating me the way that they're treating Bella? How would I feel about that? And and that's valuable, and that gives you stuff. But then you can also recognize that like, oh hey, it's possible to write a romance novel and like not have the writing be as shitty too, and that probably actually helps more. That's why there are famous historical like romance novels or dramas, right? Things like Wuthering Heights, where that's also about relationships and drama between like male and female characters. It's also like a way more finely crafted and detailed and consistent narrative of there's no vampires walking around in the sunlight because it's cloudy out because they still go to high school. It's like, no, people in Wuthering Heights they're sometimes stupid assholes, but that's because they've had stupid asshole lives leading up to that point. Makes way more sense. I don't have to ignore a bunch of things I'm noticing to let the emotional resonance of, oh, he was watching her sleep, and oh, having a man watch me while I sleep is so, it's like I must be very alluring to him. And it's like, why is he in high school though? What the fuck? Like, you don't have to do that shit if it's written better. Twilight's written poorly. That's why everyone's slagged off on it for sucking. And that's why some people liked it though, because it could subjectively hit you with some emotional connection. It's the same reason like porno films have paper thin plots and acting, because they're not like trying to hit you with any of that goodness. It's just like, oh, did it make you horny? Like, were you horny from it? Like, cool, that's all we cared about. Like, we can suck on any other category and we'll still make our money and sell our product. But then that's an issue when it's more something like The Last Jedi, say, where it's like, maybe I wanted more than to just like feel a theme that a character said to me. Like maybe I wanted to like get into this world a little bit. Maybe I wanted to like experience a bit of a sci-fi universe, feel a little motivated to like look at what there's toys and action figures of the various spaceships and creatures in the world. But if the world's like poorly crafted, inconsistent nonsense, why would I care about any of that? Like, people thought X-Wings and Y-Wings from the original movies were cool, and it's like, it's because those movies were well crafted and did cool shit with those, like, ships in them. So, to keep this from just going on forever, because I could probably I could tie this topic into so many things that it's just like, objective, subjective. You do both of them. You're probably generally always doing both of them. Be aware of it. Notice it. Show a little bit of care for it. You can get better things from your art. An example from my own life. Like, say, I was just slagging off on Twilight for having real crappy writing. I like Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is a fucking retarded show, but it's really fun, and I like it. And I watched it when I was a kid, so I have all these nostalgic memories of coming home from school and watching Goku go Super Saiyan to kill Frieza. And it's all like really kind of dumb, but it's also like, oh, but it's also like pretty legit. Like if it, like it's dumb as shit. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Characters get sidelined because other characters keep just getting more and more powerful. But like, damn, emotionally, I was like, yo, Goku's got Goku and Gohan. They got to train for a year, but in the time chamber, so only one day passes, so they can beat Cell, who's gonna kill the world. And I was just like, I'm 9 years old. I'm feeling it. I want to see Gohan go Super Saiyan 2 and beat Cell because I'm feeling it, even though this is dumb as shit. So it's not inherently bad, but I can judge them though. I can judge and say that, oh, like Hunter x Hunter had way better writing than Dragon Ball Z, or like My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia probably not as well written as Hunter x Hunter. Still better written than Dragon Ball Z. And also as characters I care about and I want to see them like win their fights and train and get stronger and save the world. But you can have better or worse writing going along with that. But I could still also like something like Dragon Ball Z while also fully acknowledging that, like, yeah, it's a dumb show and the anime is like super padded and fillered out. Like the fact that the DBZ Kai cut out literally, I think, 2/3 of the original episodes because there was just that much fucking crappy filler and slow panning shots of people yelling while they power up that, like, yeah, you actually can just cut out so much of that. And that's fine. The final thing, it's just, you know, you can pay more or less attention and have more or less care towards the media you're consuming or watching, and it's not like about right or wrong, but it's just about, you know, if you're getting into a more serious analytical discussion or examination of a work, like, just, you know, don't be surprised if people are bringing some objectivity to it, because there's certain points where it's like, well, okay, hey, if we're discussing how well crafted a film is, like, it doesn't really matter how you felt while watching it. There are things we can grade on here, right? Think a little bit like how a teacher would think, right? If you're a teacher and you were a teacher of film and you were judging a film, things like, oh, I see you made this scene fairly dark in order to create an atmosphere that would tie into the characters, but like maybe you went like too dark and it was just hard to see shit. We can judge that, like, objectively you might have had a misstep on trying to create a subjective feeling. So both these things matter. Neither's better or worse for the other. They both go together.